Okay, let's talk perfectionism. I think we all know what perfectionism is. Basically, somebody who likes to be perfect all the time, who likes to get things right, who have things done. A lot of people who consider themselves perfectionists are the type of people who have routines or structure in their life that will ensure that they always get things right. And I am most definitely one of those people. And in our society, perfectionism is often praised because these people like me who consider themselves perfectionists often get things done at a better rate or level than the average person would. But there's actually a lot of pitfalls when it comes to perfectionism. And perfectionism, as great as it might seem, yeah, it's actually not that great. And it actually holds us back quite a lot. So I wanted to discuss 3 things that I consider to be major pitfalls for perfectionists. So the first thing that I would say is that if you are a perfectionist, that you would want things to be perfect all the time. And obviously, we do not live in a perfect world, and it is highly unlikely that things will be perfect all the time. And that sets you up for failure. Because if you believe that you cannot do something to the level that you consider perfect, it's more likely that you will not attempt to do that thing rather than try and fail. And this is something that has happened to me a lot in my life, because if I truly believe that I cannot do that sport, or I cannot perform that task, or I'll be mediocre at it, I actually won't try it. Because in my mind, if I cannot be perfect at it, I'm not even going to try it. And that is something that will hold you back in so many things in your life. So really, perfectionism can often be a roadblock in your life that will turn you on to other parts, and you will miss a lot of opportunities because of it. So the second thing about perfectionism is that you have very high standards for yourself. And as humans, we often project things on other people. And I think perfectionists in particular, we project our higher standards onto other people. And a lot of times that will show up, particularly in romantic relationships, sometimes in friendships, sometimes in between parents and children. But what you will notice happen is that because you have such a high standard yourself, you've set the bar very high, and your expectations are now very high, and it is almost impossible for somebody else to live up to that expectation. And you'll find yourself always thinking, oh, this person's always failing me, or they're never doing things right, and then you'll start questioning whether they're even the right person for you. But in reality, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't have standards, absolutely there should be standards, however, how intense or how high are your standards? That's something that you have to question, because if you are somebody who has to be perfect all the time, you most likely are expecting your spouse or your children to emulate that same behavior. And like I've said before, this is a world where no one and nothing is perfect. So yes, they are going to fail you. It is going to happen, and you are going to be stuck in this loop of why are things never perfect? So the third thing, which you probably would have picked up from the last 2 points about perfectionists having very high standards, the downside to that is that you're most likely going to be very hard on yourself. Your inner critic has a very loud voice, and they use that voice often. So you're probably going to beat yourself up for every little tiny mistake that you have made. And it's very easy to get caught in the loop of trying, failing, and beating yourself up about that thing that you failed at, coming back, trying, failing, beating yourself up. And you get stuck in this loop of continuously doing the same thing, and you get more exhausted and you get more depressed, which will increase your rate of failure because you just don't have the energy to do that anymore. And it's just a horrible cycle that you get stuck in. And it could be with like the most simplest thing of a word that you would have said to somebody that maybe made them feel bad. And now you're beating yourself up about this, thinking that you're the world's worst person. How could you have even had that thought, said that word, whatever it is that's happened? And that will sit with you. You're hating yourself. And now you're going to be so conscious of every little thing that you say to that person now. You probably apologize profusely. And again, beat yourself up. And if you were to do that same thing again, again, going in that same loop, you'll be back in the same place that you were before. So, people who are perfectionists do tend to live in this negative cycle in their life where we're constantly beating ourselves up about something that we didn't achieve, something that we did wrong. And really, it doesn't set you in it doesn't keep you in a good mindset, and that really is not going to help you to be better in anything else in your life. So it is a major pitfall, I would say, to perfectionism, is this constant need to always do things at a certain level, to always be perfect, to always surpass everyone else, pretty much. It's not so much about superiority, but it's your idea, and everybody's idea of perfectionism is different. But whatever your idea of perfect is, if you do not meet that standard, you will constantly beat yourself up about it, and that is not going to help you at all. And the last thing I wanted to touch on was my personal experience with perfectionism. And it is certainly something that is a work in progress for me. It is not easy to retrain yourself. It is possible, but it is very hard because our brain always goes back to what our usual patterns are. And creating new pathways is difficult. But I think that trying really in itself is empowering, because noticing that you don't need to have everything perfect. You don't need to have everything planned out. You don't need to have in your mind already a thought or an answer for something that you're predicting that's going to happen in the future. You don't have to have everything done to this standard. Like, as long as it's good enough, then it is good enough, right? That is something that's been extremely hard for me to do my entire life. And I'm still in the process of fixing that. But I think that one thing that has been the greatest takeaway for me is that it's okay to not be perfect. I had to figure out, and I think this is probably something that if you are like me and struggling with this too, it's important to figure out where this idea of perfectionism comes from. And a lot of the times it is to do with childhood or parenting. And, a lot of us believe that if we are not perfect all the time, then we are not worthy of love. So that is a big thing that I had to deal with, that I had to delve into. And, that was the root of my perfectionism. And that is something that I'm still working on. But I think it's important for everyone who has trouble with perfectionism to understand where that comes from. It might be one particular event that had happened to you that set you into this thinking pattern, but that's something that you have to figure out for yourself, and you have to get through, work through, and realize, hey, I don't have to be perfect all the time. I'm fine the way that I am. Okay, I'm human. I'm going to make mistakes. Empathy for yourself is a big thing for perfectionists that I'm still learning how to practice and still trying to train myself to have, because I make mistakes every single day. I am far from perfect. And as much as that annoys me because I'm a perfectionist, that is the reality for everyone. It is not possible to be perfect. It simply isn't. And that is a hard pill to swallow for somebody like me, but it's the reality. And the sooner that you can accept that, the better off you will be. The sooner that you figure out where it came from, the better you're already moving in a better direction and helping yourself, really. So I hope the things that I've touched upon have been useful for you, or perhaps you're not the one who's a perfectionist, somebody that you know is. And of course, everything that I've touched upon is from my own personal experience and things that I've gone through and dealt with through counseling and therapy and whatnot. And I think this was a good opportunity for me to share a few things that us perfectionists deal with. So I hope that was helpful, and I'll catch you in the next video.